Hey guys! Okay, so today I'm back with my Sippin' Sundays. As I told you in the last one, I was going to try to upload these every Sunday. I know it is, 12 o'clock that I'm filming this, but these are going to be like pretty raw videos. I'm not going to edit them too much. They're kind of a sit down, speak your mind kind of video, so I don't want to edit out too much of the raw material. So today's topic was it's something that I have been had strong thoughts on for years now, ever since it happened, and that is the topic of, let me turn this down, the topic of Katrina and Rita's impact on South Louisiana. Now, I'm born and raised North Louisiana, but I now live in South Louisiana, and don't get me wrong, the hurricanes did affect New Orleans and Bourbon Street and the 9th Ward. I'm not saying that they didn't. They did. They did flood. They did lose a lot of things. They lost their homes, and but you also have to look at the 9th Ward was pretty run down before the hurricanes ever hit. I mean, there wasn't that much there anyways. The houses were already in poor condition. The living conditions were poor. It's not like it was a complete devastation, because they weren't directly hit by the hurricane. They were flooded by the rains and the levees and dams that broke. My stepfather and some other family members worked to rebuild those levees days after the hurricanes hit, and I personally did go down there and see the damage firsthand. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw everything that it impacted, but 2 weeks after I went down there, and Bourbon Street was up and running again. It's like it had never been hit. And the 9th Ward was pretty much back to where it was. I mean, people did have no electricity, and they did lose loved ones. And I'm not saying that that's not sad. It is sad. But you also have to take in consideration, they knew the storm was coming. They knew what their consequences were for not boarding up their house, for not vacating the premises, for not evacuating like they should have. I mean, I was in North Louisiana when it happened, and I had people come to my school, other students come to my high school at the time, and their family, like their grandparents, were down there because they were born and raised down there, and they didn't want to evacuate. And to me, that's personally, I would have evacuated. Born and raised, I know, but it's life or death. And my biggest problem was the teacher that I had at the time, and a lot of the news channels, the internet, the newspapers, anything that did stories on it, they didn't do stories about anything more south than New Orleans. They only cared about the iconic city of New Orleans, the iconic Bourbon Street, and iconic 9th Ward. They didn't report on the people that 2 weeks after, in the most southern part of Louisiana, their houses were still on opposite side of the streets. I mean, when I went down there, I physically saw houses that were split down the middle and on opposite side of the streets, or miles apart from each other, and they had to go through with spray paint and put their original address on their houses or their cars. I saw refrigerators and trees. There were barges laid across the roads, and you couldn't drive through there. It was a horrible sight to see. It was devastating, and then the most devastating thing to see was a house that was split in two, that the family members had spray painted on there. Why doesn't the news report on Port Sulphur? And that was heartbreaking, because it was true. Up in North Louisiana, and I'm sure everywhere else in the world, people didn't see anything reported on the news about the most southern part of Louisiana. I know I never did until I actually went down there and saw it in person. The media just didn't care about anything except what was iconic, what would get their ratings up, because everybody in the world has heard of New Orleans or Bourbon Street. And the other day, watching American Idol, the New Orleans auditions, with Harry Connick Jr. being from New Orleans, I understand that that's still media. They still only want to report on him being the iconic person from there and being a judge on this show. They had to bring in the devastating story of the Ninth Ward and how torn apart it was because the hurricanes hit it. But they were simply flooded by levees and dams breaking. And I understand that he's not from any town more south of New Orleans, but I'm from North Louisiana, and my heart was broken seeing all the devastation from Port Sulphur and all the way to the very tip of the boot that stuck out in the ocean, that there was barges and shrimp boats and all kinds of stuff, and trees turned upside down and blocking roads. But because Harry Connick Jr. is not from anywhere more southern than New Orleans, American Idol didn't want to have a backstory about that. They only wanted to put in their 2 cents about how devastated New Orleans was. And that really aggravated me. It's aggravating that I can be from the same state as him, but I'm from North Louisiana, and I get aggravated and pissed off that they don't want to report on more damage that was directly hit with the eye of the hurricanes. Just all of the winds in full force that hit the coastline. But when people say coastline, they're like, oh, New Orleans. Oh, no, that's not the coastline. The coastline is the very tip. The coastline is what touches the water. It's not what the world knows as Louisiana, being New Orleans and Mardi Gras. No, it's the very, very edge of the land that touches the water. That's what was most devastating. But it's devastating to me that the rest of the world never knew that and don't know that because the news didn't report on that. So when people from all other states or countries hear or think about New Orleans or Katrina or Rita, they only think about how New Orleans was so torn apart and devastated by those hurricanes. But that's not the full story, people. It's not. And if you do your research, I'm sure you can get on Google and see how the people of Port Sulphur and south of that felt about how they weren't being reported on for devastation, and they weren't being talked about for the damages that were done to their families and homes and property. And the anger that they had that they weren't being reported on. And I'm sure there's images and pictures, and that is just my personal opinion. Leave the negative comments if you want to, but that is my opinion from a born and raised Louisianan on how media only comments on places and topics that they know are going to get them ratings or money. They don't care about what really is devastating, what really happened. They only care about what is going to get them more money in their bank account. So that's it for my Sippin' Sunday. I'm going to go ahead and finish my red wine in my red Solo cup with my lipstick. This lipstick and lip gloss, however, is the new Miley Cyrus MAC Viva Glam. If you want to see a in-depth video on these, I will leave that link below. And also today I did my makeup using all samples. I had a lot of samples laying around and I was kind of looking at them like, I wonder if I could do a video on a full face sample look. So if you're interested in seeing that, thumbs up this video or leave it in the comments down below. And also, if you have the same thoughts about the media only reporting on things that get them reviews and money, like this video. And if you hadn't and you'd like to, go ahead and hit that button, subscribe, and join me on this journey for more videos that I have to bring to you. And as always, you can find me on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. And I also have a new blog. Go check that out. Bye.